Okay, all right. This is exciting. I'm happy to have my good friend Sandi Griffin on here. She is amazing. If you saw a little bit about her bio, she is a former IFFB. I always have that messed up when
IFBB.
A physique competitor. She's international, all over the world. So it's exciting. We met about 4 years. When did you move here?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. We met shortly after she moved out here, and she lives up in Falcon where I live. And we've just become really good friends, and I love working with her in her challenge and partnering with her and stuff. And so she is going to tell you, we're going to talk a little bit about nutrition. She's going to tell you some great information, share some stuff with you, share her journey with you. If you have not watched the video that's in the event or in the group, watch it. It's amazing. She knows what it's like to be in one place and then to completely shift and change her whole life. And it's all because she actually, you got injured? So tell us a little bit about your story and tell us what you do. So go ahead and take it away.
First of all, just thank you for the invitation. And we moved from Germany. We lived in Germany for 17 years, and moving over here into a community where I didn't know anybody. Victoria was one of the very first fitness professionals to reach out and like, hey, let's meet. And so we just kind of became instant friends. I think you're just an amazing, strong female presence in our community, and just always encouraging people and always so supportive of everybody. So I appreciate you a lot.
Thank you. Sandi brings everybody together too.
So, but just a brief history for those of you that didn't get to watch the video. I had a skiing, well, let me back up. Our family was first moved to Germany in 2002. And that was a big transition. My husband had been gone to Korea for a year prior. So we were coming back together as husband and wife. We had 3 small children, ages 3 to 6. And moving to a foreign country where we didn't know the language, I didn't know anybody, I didn't have a job, it was a big transition. And it was a really hard transition because we moved right at the end of spring, but it was a kind of a soggy summer. If those of you that aren't familiar with Germany, it's much like Seattle weather. And we went into a very hard winter that year. And so the first year that we lived there, I gained about 50 pounds, and then I just kept going. I got to the point where my health had deteriorated to the point I was hypertensive. I had to have my gallbladder taken out. I had lower back pain. I was pre-diabetic. I was just like fast tracking my way into a heart attack or a stroke. And I got really scared. I had a friend that was kind of in the same situation, had an aneurysm and nearly died. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to leave my kids without a mom, and I'm going to leave my husband without a wife, and they deserve better. And so I started just making tiny little baby steps. I did not jump into any big thing. I started watching my portions. I started making healthier choices. I started using the stationary bicycle in our basement twice a week. And I would bribe myself, if I exercised 2 days in a row, I could go to the tanning booth for 8 minutes, little tiny things. And then I figured out I really like this, whatever it was. I think it was the show Alias. And I thought, I'll only watch that show if I'm on the exercise bike, and that'll be incentive for me to get on the bike, because I can only watch the show if I exercise. And I was making good progress. I had a traumatic knee injury. I tore my MCL and ACL in a skiing accident and went to physical therapy. And then I started discovering, hey, I kind of like being in the gym. This isn't such a bad place. And my husband talked me into doing a bodybuilding show, and then it was kind of history from there. But I've been in that place where I was hopeless, and I actually had the thought at one point, I don't know how to lose weight, and I'm so lost. I don't know where to start. There's so much information out there, and I don't know what to do. And I felt like I was too far gone. I thought, well, maybe I'll just gain another 30 to 50 pounds, and then I'll be a gastric bypass candidate, and the doctors can fix me. And thank God I didn't do that. But through my journey, I discovered how strong I was. I discovered confidence I'd never had before. And I discovered that there's so many other men and women out there that need to discover that too. So that's kind of how I got led into my profession of now 15 years or so. So today I just want to share some information about eating properly. And I don't know where everyone's at in their journey, and Lori and Abby, and I'm not sure who iPad is, but hello. Please feel free to type a message in the chat or just turn on your mic and ask a question. I don't want to assume people are at a certain point. I really try to meet people where they're at when I teach or when I share information. So I'm just going to touch on a few things. And of course, Victoria, being your coach and mentor, always go to her for questions. If any of these kind of spark some like, ooh, maybe I should have backed up a little bit and done this or asked this question, or I don't know what she's talking about, feel free to ask questions or, chat with Victoria. So
I think some of them, Erica, do you have anybody on here?
Yeah. I know Abby is, I don't know. Lori, I think is yours.
Some of them might be hers too.
Yeah, so they're a combination.
Yeah, we have a combo.
Yep.
Oop. All right.
All right. So what we're going to talk about is fueling your body to perform. And unfortunately, there's so many people that don't understand that you have to eat enough to lose weight. You have to eat enough to reach your goals, whatever your fitness goals are. Victoria, what would you say in a general term are the folks that you're working with right now, what is their fitness goal?
So most of them are looking at losing weight. I mean, that's a big one. I think Erica's, is that what yours is?
Yeah,
Mainly losing weight,
feeling better,
better, more energy, toning up, those kind of basic things. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So this falls right into line with that. As an athlete, as a mom, as a business professional, it doesn't matter who you are, what you're doing, what your fitness goal is. If you don't have gas in the tank, your car's not going to drive, period. So you have to fuel your body for performance. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to compete on a stage or you're going to, do anything monumental in the eyes of the world per se, but just living daily life and having energy, you have to give your body what it needs in order to expect that from it. And so we're going to talk about a lot of different components of that today. I'm sorry, my slides aren't. There we go. So the first thing I always share is to get to a goal, there's lots of different things that we need. So the first thing in today is that big red circle of knowledge. You need to know what to do, how to do it, before you can even get started. So that's what we're going to try to impart today, is a little bit of knowledge. Then comes the other piece, skills. That's, knowing how to exercise, knowing how to eat, what foods to eat, how do I meal prep, how do I make sure that I'm getting enough, tracking your food perhaps, just to make sure that those calories are where they need to be. But this last little box, guess what? Victoria can't do this for you. I can't do this for you. Erica can't do this for you. Only you can do that. And that has to be the desire. And that desire not only comes, desire and motivation are sometimes used synonymously, but you have to have the desire to seek the knowledge. You have to have the desire to learn the skills. And again, we can provide all of those tools. It's like I can put a hammer and nails on a table and tell you how to use them, but until you actually pick them up and do something with them, they're just going to sit there. And until that you pick them up and actually use them, habits can't be formed, because habits are all three of those put together. So if you feel like you don't have enough knowledge right now, if you don't have the skills, then that's where you might want to back up a little bit and take another look at that. And having this goes into the next part, which is what tools do you need, and figuring that out. And so, like I mentioned, that could be learning how to utilize MyFitnessPal so that you can see the breakdown of your food and how many calories are you eating. Most people think they're eating enough. And then when I actually make them track it, they're grossly under eating. Yeah. Most people don't eat bad. They actually eat really, really good foods: granola, yogurt, nuts, avocado, whole grains, oatmeal, and it's all these great things. And then they put them together and they're like, oh, I didn't realize I wasn't eating enough, or I, didn't have these things in the right balance. And so oftentimes it's not that you need to scrap everything that you're doing. It just means you might need to change things a little tiny bit and start where you're at and make one little change until that becomes a habit. Okay. And then make another small little change. And before you know it, you've gone from over here to over here. And you're like, wow, that was really easy. So figuring out the tools you need is one piece of that. The next thing is setting goals. So most people are aware of SMART goals, and SMART goals mean that it's specific, that it's measurable, it's attainable. It is, what's the R? Relevant to what you're trying to do and trying to achieve, and then time sensitive. But I take goals to a whole different level, because those are great, but they don't identify the next things we're going to talk about. So you've set a goal for this challenge that you're doing with Erica and Victoria, but have you thought about these things? First thing is accountability. How many people have you actually told that you're going to do this goal, and you've given them a date that you're going to have it accomplished by, and you've asked them for help? We can't do things on our own. My whole entire career as a bodybuilder, I depended on my family, I depended on my husband, I depended on my coach, I depended on my friends, and it had to come from me first. But if I went out to a restaurant and I was just struggling because I know that they were going to be getting that French bread that got served, or those tortilla chips that got served before the meal, and I had to stick to just my meal, here's one way I ask for accountability. Hey, would you guys mind if we didn't have that bread delivered until the meal got delivered? And then you guys can eat whatever you want, because I'll have food in front of me. And anybody that loves and cares about you is going to be like, yeah, no problem. No problem. But if you don't ask for help, guess what? They want to lovingly sabotage you. What's one little chip going to do? No big deal. Okay. So ask for help, and don't ask it apologetically. I don't say, oh, I really can't have that brownie, but I really love to, but I can't. Be like, no, I have a goal, but thank you very much. End of discussion. That doesn't open up opportunity for sabotage. And oftentimes that's on our end. It's not on their end.
They see you have a weak spot when you do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, oh, they know they can get you.
Yep. The next thing that SMART goals don't identify is your bad habits. We have to be honest with ourselves, and we always have room for improvement. And even 15 years into my fitness journey, I still have room for improvement. There are still things that I'm navigating or still trying to get better at, still learn and still grow. But one of those is identify my habits, and year to year that may change. It's a slippery slope, and all of a sudden you're like, why am I doing that all the time? So being honest with yourself. And also, again, that goes back to the accountability. Once you've identified that, ask for help. Tell somebody that I'm struggling with this, I need your help. Because guess what? That's what they want to do. We always want to have a part in someone's success. And so anybody that loves and cares about you is going to help you with that. Once you identify your bad habits, what are some new habits you need to implement? Maybe you're not drinking enough water. Maybe you're not, you're skipping meals throughout the day. Maybe you're not getting 8 hours of sleep a night. So those are some habits you need to implement. And again, SMART goals don't address that. So these are all ways to really, it's not just about setting your goal, but getting the plan put together to accomplish it. And it's great to have the measurable and the, attainable and everything else, but what's your plan to get there? Okay. Identify your obstacles. Do you have vacations coming up that you're going to be traveling and you're not going to have your meal prep foods, or you're not going to have the foods that you can cook at home and you're going to be eating out at restaurants? How can you overcome that? Maybe you choose to get an Airbnb instead of a hotel room so you can prepare your own meals. Maybe you identify the restaurants you're going to eat at and look at their menu ahead of time and choose something off the menu that's going to fit your goals. Share your goal out loud. That's one thing. People set goals all the time, but if it doesn't leave your mouth, it's imaginary. Because guess what? We'll let ourselves fail every time, because no big deal. We'll just start again on Monday, right? So if it's in here, it's imaginary. Once you say it out loud, you've spoken it into existence. Now other people are aware of it, and guess what? They're going to be looking for you to do that.
They can call you on it, hopefully.
Yep. And the more we say something, the more real it becomes. Think about, like if you've had some great news, and the more you say it, the more excited you get. You should be that excited about your goal, sharing it out loud. So as we move into goals with nutrition, and I don't use the word diet because it's not a diet. Diet is a short-term thing. Nutrition is, we have to sustain our life. Okay. So if you look up Wikipedia and you Google diet, there are 154 different kinds of diets. Okay. And I'm sure Erica and Victoria get asked all the time the same thing. What do you think about fill in the blank whatever, Atkins, Weight Watchers, Nutrisystem's, paleo, intermittent fasting, blah, blah, blah. That's only like 6 of the 154. What do you think about blank diet? And I never answer that question because, again, this is about education. I can tell you what I think. That's not going to mean anything to you. What is your why? Why are you doing this? And how are you going to feel when you accomplish your goal? What is going to be life-changing if you do lose those pounds, if you do get that healthy, if you are able to accomplish this competition or this feat or this event? How is that going to make you feel? How is that going to change your life? That is what should be most important to you. And if you're really looking at that and you've set your plan to accomplish your goal, I want you to think about these 3 questions when you think about your nutrition. The first thing is, are you ready to do this the rest of your life? Anything you put in your mouth or any type of plan or whatever that you're going to follow, if it's a 30, 90-day fix, detox, whatever, it's not sustainable. And if you're not ready to do it the rest of your life, it's not going to be permanent because you're only going to do it for a short period of time and then you're going to stop. So I want you to think about this. If you are willing to do something for 30 days, what are you going to learn? Are you going to learn anything? And I'll give you an example. Slim Fast shakes. You're going to drink shake in the morning, a shake at lunch, you're going to have a healthy meal at night. If you stop drinking those shakes, have you learned what to actually properly fuel your body with at breakfast time? Have you learned how to properly fuel your body at lunchtime? So if you take out those 2 shakes, what are most people going to do?
Whatever.
They're going to go back to what they were doing before they were drinking the shakes. Because you haven't learned a new habit. You simply replaced it with a temporary source. And once you take that temporary source away, you haven't learned anything. You haven't implemented any good habits. So you go back to the old ones because that's all you know, and that's what's familiar, and that's what's comfortable. So when you think about a diet, and if you're not ready to do it the rest of your life, then kind of secondary questions is, am I going to learn anything? Am I going to implement any new good behaviors and habits in that process? Some of the diets, you're going to answer yes to that, and that's great. But you have to answer yes to the next 2 questions as well. Okay. So the next question, would you let a child eat like this? Would you let a 7-year-old child intermittent fast? Would you let a 10-year-old do keto? Maybe you would. If it's not acceptable for a growing child, it's not acceptable for an aging adult. Our bodies are still growing too. Our bodies have incredible nutritional needs, especially women as we age. We have to be so careful with our vitamin deficiencies, our iron deficiencies, our bone density. So if you strip all those things away by eating a very restricted or temporary diet, think about the devastation you're doing to your body, no different than you would a child that's growing. So if you want, it might be a temporary fix, but it's not going to be a long-term solution. So if you can answer yes to those 2 questions, we'll keep going. The third question is, do you personally, not the friend of a friend, or I heard of somebody that did, or my friend told me that they did, do you actually know somebody who has met their goal using that method, met their goal, and maintained it for more than 2 years? Again, is it sustainable? Is it healthy? Is it realistic? And did you learn anything? Or are you starving yourself to the point where you get to your goal, but then you didn't learn anything? You've devastated your body. And when you're done with that 30-day program, you go right back to those old habits. And when you go back, guess what? Because you've devastated your body, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, things aren't going to happen the same. Okay. So these are the 3 questions with anything that you do. And I tell this to my bodybuilders. I tell this to my clients that I work with personal training, and my nutrition coaching clients, and my Olympic athletes that I work with. These are questions you need to be able to answer yes to, because if you can't, it's not something you probably should be doing unless it's under the guidance of a registered dietitian or a doctor. Okay. Any questions on that so far? Any comments? Anybody have any?
No, that's good though. those are good questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Things I never thought of to ask them, because you're always going like,
No.
Yeah. And when I ask those questions, I have to take a look at what I did as an athlete, because I learned some hard lessons. So it's basically from my mistakes that I came up with those questions. So this is just something that most people are aware of when you're talking about food. Proteins, carbohydrates, and fats are not separate categories. A lot of them overlap. So beans contain protein, but if you look at the can of beans, what number is higher?
Mhm.
Are they higher in carbohydrate or are they higher in protein?
It's carbs.
Carbs. So it's a carb source with some protein. Vice versa, you have eggs and salmon, they have protein, but they have a pretty high number of fat. But what number is higher? And that's what it's actually considered. So when people say, oh, I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I had protein. No, you didn't. You had fat with a lot of carbs that had a tiny bit of protein. So, and the reason I shared this is because once you know something, you can't unknow it.
It gets skewed. It's like, it always happens.
Yeah. So, and quinoa is actually one of those really funny ones that the protein contained in quinoa is actually a whole protein source. Their DNA is almost identical to animal protein. So a lot of plant protein is lacking a DNA molecule that makes it a little bit different from animal protein, but quinoa is one of those anomalies that actually mimics it. But you'll see a lot of the overlap. Milk is a 1-to-1 ratio of protein and carbohydrate. So yes, you're getting a lot of protein, but you're also taking in the same amount of carbohydrates as you are in a glass of milk. So just something to be aware of when you're looking at your food. And again, all of these foods are fantastic. You know, they're all good, whole foods. But again, that balance of them and learning what foods are and how they overlap can really help you with planning your nutrition better to make sure you're getting what your body needs for whatever your fitness goal is. And again, I hope I'm, if I'm preaching to the choir, you guys already know this stuff. I'm sorry if, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of all of these things. So when we're talking about calories are not created equal. But a lot of, people trying to debunk so many horrible nutrition myths. I have to cut out carbs if I'm going to lose weight. Wrong. Carbs make you fat. Fat makes you fat. Wrong. So when we're talking about calories, every gram of protein contains 4 calories. And that doesn't matter if we're talking about chicken, if we're talking about eggs, yogurt, plant-based protein, 4 calories for every gram of protein. The same thing with carbohydrates. 1 gram of carbohydrate equals 4 calories. Now, 4 calories of sugar versus 4 calories of like a whole grain complex carbohydrate like quinoa going to do very different things to your body. So again, just because it's still the same calories does not mean it's going to have the same effect in your body. And here's what gets people into trouble is the fat. It's not that fat makes you fat, but fat contains 9 calories per gram. So if you take a 1/4 cup of nuts, you're looking at 200 calories versus a cup of oatmeal at 150 calories. And if you eat a cup full of nuts to get the same satiety, like to be satisfied the same as eating a bowl of oatmeal, you've quadrupled your calories. Okay. And so now it's not that the fat is making you fat, it's that you've gone way above your caloric intake for the day based on your energy expenditure. Does that make sense to everybody, Lori and Abby and iPad? Just want to make sure I'm not going over this too quickly or
comments if you can. Yes, sir. They're all working probably.
Okay. All right.
Pretending like they're not doing anything at work.
All right. So just want to make sure that all makes sense to everybody. So, and this is something, if you don't eat according to your goals, don't expect to reach them. If you're starving your body, don't expect to have energy. If you're starving your body, don't expect to have muscle gain. If you're starving your body, don't expect to recover well. Don't expect to sleep good at night. Don't expect that weight loss to happen because your body is going to be like, nope, I'm going to sit right here until you do what's right. So now we're going to talk about some pretty brutal facts, and hopefully this isn't a trigger for anybody, and that was never my intent. But it's important for you to realize, and it's kind of one of those, again, once you know this, you can't unknow it. So if anyone has ever heard of the term, okay, so Abby, we'll go back. So when, and just to clarify, you want me to clarify the macros and the calories? Okay, so 1 gram of protein has 4 calories. So if we, let's use 20 grams just for easy math. So if we have a small chicken breast, which is 20 grams of protein, that's going to be 80 calories. If we have 20 grams of rice with that chicken breast, that's going to be 80 calories. And that's assuming you're not adding any other, butter and sauce and all those kinds of things on there. So 80 calories for a 20 gram protein chicken breast, 80 calories for 20 grams of cooked rice, which is about half a cup of rice. And a small chicken breast is about 20 grams of protein. And let's say that we have 20 grams of some really nice, fresh sliced avocado on the top of it, 20 grams of fat put on there, which is a lot of avocado. It's like a whole avocado. But who doesn't like avocado, right? It's healthy. Okay, that 20 grams of avocado, 20 grams of fat from that avocado is 180 calories. So you have 180 calories from fat. You have 80 calories, 80 calories, 160 calories from chicken and rice. And if you're not careful with your fat intake throughout the day, what the fat does is, because there's double the amount of calories per every gram, it can, without you even realizing it, because fat comes in such a little package, that it can cause your calories to come way over the top at the end of the day. And your body can only utilize so many calories a day. Your car can only hold so much gas in the gas tank. And if you overfill your gas tank, it just spills out onto the ground. So if you're eating too many calories and your body can't utilize those calories throughout the day because of the lack of energy expenditure, then your body has no choice but to store it. And that calories doesn't have to come from fat. It can come from carbohydrate calories. It can come from protein calories. Calories are calories when it's an overture. However, again, this gets into a whole different subject on how protein and carbs and fats all work in your body and how your body responds to those. But when we're looking at simply calories, our bodies are designed to burn through this many based on our lifestyle, based on our exercise that we do, based on our genetics, based on our size, based on being male or female. And if we exceed that, then we get into trouble. Does that clarify a little bit, Abby? Yes, the MyFitnessPal really does help you see that balance. So yes, that's great that you're using that.
Yep.
All right, so back to this one. So when we're talking about calorie expenditure, Abby, one of the things that's really important for folks to really kind of know is there's 2 different terms. One is called basal metabolic rate, BMR, and the other is resting metabolic rate. And your basal would be as if you were lying in a coma in a hospital bed, just on life support or not, just you're unconscious, your brain function is very little. It's in an unconscious state. Your heart's beating, you're breathing, and your body is cycling waste, through your kidneys and just basic bodily functions. Okay. That is your basal metabolic rate. And then you have your resting metabolic rate. Let's say that you're conscious, but you're just laying in bed. Like think of an elderly person that is bedridden, that is awake during the day, watching TV, but they can't actually get up and really do much. Okay, so that's a resting metabolic rate. From basal to resting, you actually burn several hundred more calories just from being conscious. Just from the act of chewing food, you're burning calories doing that. Just from moving your arms around, throwing the covers around, changing over in bed, you're burning calories doing that because your body's more active. Your heart rate is up from resting. You're still in a kind of a resting heart rate, but more so than an unconscious resting state. Okay, so when you look at a comatose patient, and think about how many calories you're eating, and think about the lowest number of calories you've ever done, whether this is 10 years ago and you tried a diet, the cabbage soup diet, the Diet Coke and Oreo diet, whatever, think about how many calories you allowed your body to get down to for a sustained period of time. Okay. And I want you to think about this. A comatose patient receives 20 to 25 calories per kilogram of body weight just to sustain their life. And we're talking BMR. This is unconscious, just basic bodily function. Okay. And so if you were a 150-pound female, which is 68 kilograms, your lowest amount of calories that a doctor would be feeding you through a tube is 1,360 calories, upwards of 1,700 calories to keep you alive. Think about how much you weigh. Think about how many calories you've allowed your body to be starved from. And think about how long would it take you to, would you be able to keep your body alive? And you're not comatose. Let's add that in there too. Okay. So I want you to think of these numbers when you start looking at your own nutrition. Just to sustain a life that's not moving, but just breathing with barely any brain function, you're looking at a minimum of about 1,360 calories for a 150-pound female. Okay. And this is give or take. And there's a lot of science that goes into intratuble feeding. Won't get into that, but with all the glucose and the protein and everything that a body needs. But generally speaking, at, elementary level, this is kind of the standard. Okay. Now I'm going to bring it into a little bit more severe subject. So I really want you to understand that when you deprive your body of calories, how dangerous and how deadly this can be. Okay. So we lived in Germany. We did visit Auschwitz. This is one of the photos that we took. It was astounding that just the horrors of the Holocaust in general, but this particular subject when I'm talking with my clients. One of the most notorious experiments perpetrated on Auschwitz prisoners was the hunger disease induced on them by the insufficient quantity of their food. This was actually started before concentration camps were built. This was when Nazi Germany had secluded Jews in the ghettos, and they had a plan. Himmler came up with a plan called their hunger plan, and that was to starve all of their enemies or people that they wanted to exterminate, to starve them and take away all the necessities of the food that had those vital nutrition, vegetables and protein, meats and vegetables and things. They took those away because they discovered with an experiment with rats, they fed them a diet modeled on how they were going to feed the prisoners. And within 3 months, they developed hunger disease. And what that was is that they had starved these people to a point where they had no fat stores. Their muscle tissue was being utilized by their body. And then it started tearing down their internal organs. So even if they did get food, they couldn't process it because all those systems had shut down. So they were eating and they weren't receiving any nutrition from the little bit of food they were getting because their bodies completely shut down. Now, Nazi Germany, these prisoners were fed between 200 and 800 calories a day, along with hard labor. I also want you to think how few calories have you allowed your body to get down to and for what length of time? Within 3 months, and this is why they implemented this, within 3 months, 3 to 4 months, they knew that they could expire that person because they had trainloads of new ones coming in. Horrible, morbid fact, but something I want you to think about. How good do you treat your body? So what happens if you don't eat enough calories? Okay, of course, we are not going to let our body starve. We're going to give in. Okay. Usually people, like I said, most people can do this for 30 to 60 days. And of course, we're not starving like a prisoner would, but we love ourselves enough to stay alive. But there still are devastating effects to your body if you don't eat enough. And what those are, the first, back up there, slower metabolism. So several studies show that low-calorie diets can decrease the number of calories the body burns by as much as 23%. So let's say you cut yourself down to 1,200 calories a day because someone told you you can lose 2 pounds a week doing that. When you stop doing that, you have slowed your metabolism down to the point that your body will burn 23% less when you go back to the way you were eating. Because I guarantee you're not going to be able to do 1,200 calories for very long. Something's going to happen. Somebody's going to have pizza night at their house and you're going to be like, "Ooh, that looks good." And we're going to eat, or we're going to stop doing that because we met our goal. And then we're going to start eating again, back like we used to, because we haven't learned anything. And guess what? Now you're taking in all these calories, but your metabolism is slowed down by about 23%. Has the potential to, not always. But that can really reduce your metabolism and do some damage. Just gonna, oops, I'm gonna move something out of the way here. Okay. When you reduce your calories to the point where they're not sustaining the bodily functions like your body needs, you're going to experience fatigue. And this is incredibly common with keto or the low carb diets, because your body has to have that glucose, and everything breaks down to sugar eventually. It's just at what rate and how much our insulin responds. But we have to have carbohydrates for brain function, for muscle recovery. Bodybuilders depend on carbohydrates to make sure that we get lean, but we keep all of our muscle mass, and that we're actually recovering the muscle after we break it down in the gym. So if you feel like you're tired, guess what? Along with that fatigue, how hard can you work out if you're fatigued? So if you're really trying to exercise and really strengthen your body, but you don't have the energy, are you kind of spinning your wheels in your workout? And then you've kind of got yourself in a catch-22. You're not working out as hard. Your body's not getting what it needs. And guess what? Everything's going to kind of slow down because it's going to go into protection mode. Oh, my slides are working. There we go. When you take away a lot of calories, you also take away a lot of nutrition that comes with those calories. Think of all your fruits and vegetables. Think about the iron that's found in red meat, the omega-3s that are found in fish and fatty, all the good fats that we eat. So when you take all those away, you also lower your immunity. And if we've learned anything in the last 3 years, 2.5 years, we need to keep our bodies healthy. We need to make sure we're getting those vitamins and those minerals and all the nutrition from real solid food. Don't drink your food, chew your calories, don't drink your calories. That's what your body recognizes. That's what it's able to break down and utilize best. Keep your immune system up because we need it, especially coming into winter this year. And then again, with that nutrient deficiency. Muscle loss. So one of the ways that calorie restricted diets slow your metabolism is by causing muscle loss, because if you don't have muscle, you can't be as active, which means you can't burn as many calories. And after a certain point, if the body doesn't have any reserves, it's going to actually kind of hold on to your fat reserves, because it can use that doing nothing. It's going to tear down your muscle tissue, which means you're less active, which means you can't burn any calories. So again, you get yourself into this catch-22. You might be losing weight, but are you losing the weight you want to? Do you want your weight to come from the lack of quadriceps and glute muscles and chest muscles and arm muscles? Or do you want that fat loss to be from your fat stores where you're actually trying to target it? Bone density loss. And for women, this is huge. When we start starving our bodies, and again, think of all the calcium-rich foods that we need to eat and that we need to make sure that we have. And the structure around our bones helps increase bone density. It's proven, scientifically proven, that resistance training for women builds our bone density and helps prevent osteoporosis and osteopenia. But if we're losing muscle, or we have so much fatigue that we can't actually lift heavy, our bone density is going to be at risk. And then as we age, guess what? We're not as healthy as we thought we were, because we're not eating enough calories. Seems like a pretty simple fix at this point, right? So anybody have any questions on these?
Good stuff.
Nope, I think. Anybody?
Okay.
Anyone?
No questions.
All right. The last one is rebound. Okay. So researchers believe that the lower metabolism, that slower metabolism, we talked about, that 23%, may partly explain why more than 80% of people regain weight once they go off their calorie restricted diets. And the other reason is your body will starve for so long. And then it's like, forget it. I want it all now. And if you haven't learned anything, if it's not sustainable, if it's not healthy, you're going to go back to what you know, and that's eating the way you used to. And you're going to treat yourself because you did lose maybe a few pounds. I'm going to treat myself. And then guess what? We're right back where we started and beyond. And now we've got a slower metabolism. We're fatigued. We don't have immunity. We're nutrient deficient. We have muscle loss. We have bone density loss. And now we're miserable. And now what do? And all of this can be prevented by just making sure you're getting enough calories, the right calories and the proper balance. And then, so let's say you're choosing, you name it, whatever diet, whatever nutrition plan, whatever goal, whatever it is, what's your exit strategy? And I'll use myself as an example. Bodybuilding is a very short window of time to be in that condition. It is not healthy. And every athlete knows this. It's not healthy for women, especially, to have a ripped six-pack, abs all year long. Our bodies are not meant to be that low in body fat. It's hard on our joints. It's hard on our bodies. And it's hard to sustain that. So what's your exit strategy? So it's not that it's unhealthy to do that. You just have to do it in the right way. And here comes back to that plan of setting a goal. If I'm going to do something for a short time, and I know it's a short time, I need to make sure that I'm learning something and I'm implementing new habits. I need to make sure that it's going to be healthy. I need to learn when to say enough's enough, because you may start with something and you have to listen to your body. If it doesn't feel right, it's not. If your body doesn't feel good, if you're not recovering, if you're tired, if you're starving all the time, something's not right. So you need to make sure that you're willing to nope, I'm done. I have to stop. Or, in the terms of maybe you're training for a marathon, you've got a really strict training regimen. You're not going to do that forever and ever. You're not going to be running 13 miles a day, getting ready for a full marathon. That's a window of time that you're doing. So what's your exit strategy so that you don't just cut it off and send your body into shock, or that maybe your bodybuilders do carb cycling a lot, and that's a short window of time for a specific purpose, but there's a way to transition your body slowly back into your everyday, normal, lifelong habits. And do you have a plan for that? Do you have a plan to educate yourself and know how to come out of that? Do you have a plan for what if I don't start feeling good? And do I have a relationship with maybe a dietitian or a coach or someone else that I can go to and say, hey, I'm not feeling right. Can you help me navigate this? So make sure that you have an exit strategy, whatever that looks like. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. A lot of it goes exactly with that. What we learned in the programs that me and Erica are with is the in season, the pre-season, the in season, the post-season, the off season. So it goes along exactly. I always think about that with bodybuilding. That's always like a big one. You said, you can't stay in that. You can't, people I want ripped abs. Well, that's not, you can't do that all year long. And so so that's one of the things that we work with and teach people is, when you're in season, you're going to eat this certain way. You're going to train this way. When you're post-season, we've got to have that, the exit strategy. So I love that you say that, because
awesome.
Yeah, that's something that we really focus on.
Yeah. And one of the things that I really caution people is I work with a lot of athletes that they've come to me because they've had horrible coaches. They've been abused in several manners, whether it's emotional or physical or both, whether they're starved, they're worked too hard, their workout programs are just insanely brutal, completely unnecessary, or they're verbally abused. They're bossed around and told, all these things. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be working for me, not the other way around.
You're supposed to have fun.
But one thing I tell everybody is question everything. In fact, everything that I've shared with you today, go back and watch this video, Google everything. Ask a doctor, ask a registered dietitian. I work with a community of medical professionals. I work with PhD, I work with doctors, I work with physical therapists, I work with dietitians and nutritionists, so that I can provide sound, solid information that's going to keep people safe and healthy. Our goal is to get you to a better place, not take you and start developing bad habits and ruin your health. But you're the only person that can care for your body the best. You know your body. I can only see things. I can't feel what you feel. So if you don't feel like something is healthy, if you don't feel like something is right, if something doesn't feel right, trust your gut, trust your body, and stop. And then before you ever start anything, look it up, research it, and don't just find an article. Where did that article come from? Is it from Reddit? Because I can guarantee that's probably not a reliable source. Wikipedia, Is it coming from the Mayo Clinic? Is it coming from a study done at Harvard University? Look at someone's credentials. What are their credentials, and are they actual real credentials? Where was the study done? What were the test subjects? How long ago was the study done? Is it even relevant to all the science and technology and all the knowledge we have today? And if the study was done 40 years ago, it may not be relevant today. And we may have learned that that's actually not what we thought it was. Make sure that you're looking into things. If somebody says you should do this diet, look it up, find out the pros and cons, find out the health benefits and maybe the health risks. Talk to your doctor, talk to someone that's really knowledgeable in the field. Don't just follow blindly, because oftentimes there's so many horrible, and Victoria's not one of these, but there's so many horrible coaches out there that will just lead their clients and they'll just let them fall off the cliff because the client's just like, oh, he told me to do it, so I'm going to do it because I'm paying him. So question everything. Question me, question Victoria, question Erica. They know their stuff, but hold your coach, hold your trainer accountable, and make them help you understand why it is you're doing what you're doing, and back it up with science and facts. Don't just take someone's word for it. Okay. And then lastly, recipes. So I have a huge recipe page. It is free. You just need to log in with a username and password. I get a lot of Chinese and Russian spam, and this prevents me from getting hacked. So because this is the only page on my website where people can leave comments. So I had to lock this page down. I do not spam you. I do not send out newsletters and all that good stuff. But you have this really cool little section right here where you can look up if you want a dinner recipe, if you want a Mexican recipe, if you want the 1-to-1 ratio, means that the protein and carbohydrates are already balanced out 1-to-1. So if you have 25 grams of carbs, you're going to have about 25 grams of protein to go along with that. And that recipe is already built and designed that way. So it's a kind of an easy, I just don't want to think and put things together. And that's a great way to go. If you're looking for bodybuilding friendly recipes, these are super clean recipes that I would eat when I was getting ready for a competition, or my favorites. These are tried and true family favorites, low carb recipes where you can put the carbs in your own self. If you want to you only like quinoa and you don't want to do rice or potatoes, you can pick a low carb recipe and throw that in there with that. So you can access that anytime. And that's at sandigriffin.com.
I love you. I love that. And because we used that during when we were training for TriFit. I was like, just go to Sandi's recipes. So yeah, I do encourage a lot of people there because I love your recipes. They're really good. And they're not that difficult. They're super simple, actually, most of them.
Yeah.
But
I had 3 teenagers that I raised. So it was about how fast can I get in and out of the kitchen?
yeah, exactly. I'm like, I don't have time for this. So it's like when people bring it up, I'm like, okay, I got a place to send you. There you go. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you. That was awesome. That goes hand in hand with what we're teaching our clients. So
yeah, it's yeah. Thank you so much for hitting on that. One of the questions I want to ask, because I know a lot of people are always thinking that, and they're always coming up, people always ask us about, weight loss, how quickly, we all know, we 3 know it, but it's just to reiterate and, what your take is on it, people will look at things and going they think it's a great thing to lose 5 pounds in a week. Right. And then all of a sudden they hit that wall and it's 1 pound a week and 2. And I'm like, okay, that's not, you're going to see it. And, they get excited about those fast, quick diets that do that for them. So that's something, what do you usually recommend when you tell somebody, as far as weight loss, how quickly to expect it?
So yeah, that's gonna have so many different variables. But it's I tell my clients expect a half a pound to a pound and a half a week. And that being said, if someone is grossly overweight and we're talking they have, 50 or more pounds of weight to lose, that weight loss can happen quickly at the beginning, but it will slow down as your body nears its whatever your goal weight is. As it nears that, it's going to be like, do you really want to get rid of this really right now? Do we have to? So you have to be very patient. It also depends on where you're starting from. If you are just starting your exercise and nutrition program, start small. Take it one step at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't take on too much at one time. It's a slow process. It took me a year to lose that 50 pounds. And I started off with itty bitty baby steps. And then as I built that foundation and I got really excited, I was able to add more and more and more. And then it became my lifestyle before I knew it. And I was all in all the time, never looked back. But it took a year for me to get there. So be patient with yourself. These are habits. These are mindsets that need to change. And then your body you have to allow your body time to adjust. You don't want to hurt yourself. You don't want to devastate your metabolism or your health in the process. So make sure you're doing it smart. But yeah, weight loss is usually not happen fast. I would say a pound a week is a pretty good, solid, this is what we can accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like people will come to us and they only have 10 pounds and they're like, that's the hardest part. And I'm like, yeah, it is. That is hard. That's the toughest part to lose is the last 10 pounds always.
Yeah.
I always tell people you're going to feel it before you see it. So once you start feeling it, you're going to feel great. You're going to want to continue feeling good. And then the weight loss is kind of a side effect of what happens when you get that way. So,
yeah.
So Erica, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Anybody else have any last minute questions? Again, you can always post questions if you go back and watch it, or whoever's going to be watching this on the replay. You can post some questions to Sandi. She's in the group, and I'm sure she will get right back to you. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sandi. I appreciate you, as you know, always. And she's always my go-to if I have a question. So again, if anybody has questions, and if you want to get into bodybuilding, she's
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you so much, Sandi. I'm gonna stop it.